In today's episode, we have Nic Fitzgerald from Friendly Giant Films, who's going to share with you the importance of storytelling when trying to market and sell your own products. You will also get to hear how he turned his passion of creating videos into a full-time consulting business, why relationships are fundamentally built on stories, and his 9-step framework for crafting your perfect story. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Online Course Igniter podcast, where you'll hear from successful course creators and how they were able to turn their passion into a thriving online business empire. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the podcast today. We have Nic Fitzgerald, founder of Friendly Giant Films. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How about you?
I'm doing good, Nic. I'm excited to have you on. As you know, I found out about you the other day and learned that you are a great storyteller and that you have done all these wonderful things in film industry and documentaries. And I just got into learning about you because I was asking about, how can we be better speakers? How can we be better presenters? And how can we tell better stories? And through a bunch of recommendations, I found out about you and what you have to offer. And I was looking through your stuff and I really enjoyed it. And I reached out, and I'm so happy to have you on the podcast because I feel like storytelling is a very important part of what we do with online marketing. And I just felt like you could help us out. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. And you're totally right. It's how storytelling is a huge part in being able to market and get the message out there.
Yeah, definitely. So I always like to start the podcast off just hearing people's backstories and where they came from. And so if you could just take a couple moments and kind of tell me how you got into online business, how you got into storytelling, and what you were doing before what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So it's a fun, crazy story. That's the great thing about being an entrepreneur is it's never a straight shot, right? Our paths wind around and we take unexpected turns and we have challenges come up. And so I started my entrepreneurial journey fully in 2015. And it was funny. I was a financial advisor before I started my own business. And I actually was fired from my career as a financial advisor because I didn't meet my sales quota for the year 2014. It's the backstory a little bit. I was in a partnership and it was great, and I was making more money than I'd ever had in my life at that point, and things were good. But two of the partners at the end of 2013 decided they wanted to go on just themselves, and so myself and one of the other partners had to kind of reboot our financial practice, and so I wasn't able to get it going back to the levels that it was, pre partnership split. And so there I am at almost 35 years old, asking myself what I want to be when I grow up again. Right? I've worked in corporate America and I changed jobs and career paths and doing all sorts of different things, just trying to make more money and provide for my family. Like I'm married, I've got 4 kids, that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to be responsible and those things. But finally, after, I got fired from that position, it was just one of those things where we were renting a basement apartment from a family member because we had lost our home. We had burned through all of our savings, all that kind of stuff. There's nowhere to go but up. And for some reason that finally took that mental block off of me, to finally listen to my inner voice of like, okay, you have hated doing quote unquote the responsible thing. Do what you want. There's nowhere to go but up from here. So I set out to create a video production company. So I started doing that, and I didn't even have a camera of my own. So I had to borrow one until I could save up enough money to buy one myself. And so I started, trying to get local business clients and just create cool videos for their websites, like the about us type of stuff that like lets people know who they are, what they do, and why they do it, as opposed to here's our stuff and this is why we're better than everybody else. And I wanted to create stories, and so I started doing that. But I quickly found out that when you're starting out and you don't have a book of business and you don't have a portfolio, that people paying clients are hard to come by. And then when you do find those, they're the types of clients they want something that looks like The Revenant, but they have, $200 in order to
Right.
pay you for it. And so it was frustrating. And so I was looking for opportunities on days that I didn't have stuff scheduled. I just take my camera out and go shoot video just to get better at my stuff. And I came across a house that was on fire before fire crews got there and got some great footage, turned it into the local news. And I was able to parlay that into a position as a freelance photojournalist for NBC here in Salt Lake City. And so I started telling news stories and I started to get a little more income that was more steady, as I was still trying to build my business. But, you know, so I was going through that and, we were on food stamps and Medicaid and those programs, still renting the basement apartment, and just working my butt off. And, when I'm doing the one man band type of stuff as a photojournalist, I am doing all the camera work, the sound, the lighting,
Mhm.
the editing on the back end. You rarely go out with the reporter, so you're asking the questions and conducting the interviews and all these kinds of things. And I just wanted to see what's it like to not be a one man band and just specialize in one area of production. So I found my way onto a film set through some Facebook groups here in Utah, and I started working on feature films. And in the fall of 2015, and from there, I worked on 13 feature films, 2 TV series that were on network television, and tons of commercials, all while shooting news stories as well. And so it was so much fun to be able to use my creative abilities to make money. Like I never thought that was possible before, but now I was actually doing it. The problem was, as I wasn't making very much, on good sets, I was only making 200, maybe 300, $350 a day on a set. If I was, like the best boy electric or in a higher position on set. And so I was working all this time and hanging out with Hollywood producers and actors and directors. I worked with 3 Oscar winners, a bunch of Emmy winners, these kinds of cool personalities and stuff. And it looked glitzy and glamorous, but I'm working 12 to 16-hour days and only making 200 or $300 a day on
Right.
those. So the time exchange of money was just terrible, really. On paper, if I made $300 a day for a whole year, that's not terrible on paper, right? But the fact that I have 4 young kids and a wife and those
Mhm.
kinds of things, that when I'm home for a day and a half on the weekends, I'd like to be present and do stuff with them. And then, I wasn't fulfilling my responsibilities. Plus I wasn't making enough money to get off these programs and stuff or be able to get out of the basement. So I was like, you know what? Something's got to change. I am working my butt off. I'm really good at my skills and all these things. Why am I not making enough money? And I came across it actually came across my path when I found out, we were being audited by the state of Utah to see if we had received too much assistance in the food stamp program.
Oh.
And I had to get all of the 2 years of financial statements and tax returns and all sorts of stuff for them to go through. And I was just frustrated because the year before I had only made $25,000, right?
Mhm.
So I was
Right.
super frustrated. And I went to Facebook and I vented about it. And I got, it was 3 years ago this month, actually, or July when we're recording this. It was July 2017 when I put this post out. And one of my friends saw it who has a successful business. And he reached out to me personally and said, "Hey, I'm sorry that things are tough right now. And I know it's been a long time since we've spoken. We went to elementary school, middle school, high school together. But, outside of little social media interactions, we hadn't had any meaningful conversations." And so he's like, "I think I know what your problem is. And if you like help, I'd love to just like show you what you might be doing wrong and see if there's something that I can do or guide you to make this shift." And so I was like, "Sure." I love it. I'm coachable. I love when somebody is at a level or has expertise or knowledge that I don't, that can help me further myself. I always go in on it. Like, I played high school and college Division I basketball. I played semi-professionally, so I'm coachable. And so I was like, "Yes, teach me, coach me up." And so this friend, introduced me to his podcast, sent me a couple of his books. If if any of you know who Russell Brunson is in ClickFunnels, that's my friend that I've been talking about. But he's
Good
just
for now.
he'll yeah, he'll be a billionaire in the next few years. I have no doubt about that. Yeah, but like, um, he reached out and he just introduced me into a way of thinking that, okay, I have these skills, I have these abilities and talents and expertise. Now I need to be able to use them in order to help other people make money with their business. And once I made that shift and started applying the things that I was learning and taking big steps forward and, taking massive action, so to speak, things started to turn around for us. It was 2018, April of 2018, I joined a coaching program, and I dove in, and it was amazing. And I put to work the things that I was learning. And by December of that same year, we were able to move out of the basement and into the house that we're in right now. And my business went from basically $0 to $100,000 in those 8 months. And so I started to see that by taking my expertise and my knowledge, but then and putting it out there, telling my story, that was the thing that really amplified things and took us to the next level and of growing my business and being able to provide and meet the needs of my family as well. It was just really cool to see how taking action and doing, but also being vocal and publishing and telling my stories and being strategic and intentional in what things I talked about, really magnified the growth of my company.
Right, definitely. And what a blessing in disguise getting fired from your job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm one of those firm believers that things happen in order to prepare you for greater things in the future. So whatever struggles you're going through right now, whatever they may be, whether they're mental, emotional, financial, whatever it might be, you can overcome it. It's not fun. It's not it's not a fun journey, but you're going to be better qualified to serve and help more people going forward at a deeper level than you could have, without it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely agree with that. I mean, and during those times, they're tough, and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then you look back and you say, "Wow, like how crazy my life has changed from that moment."
yeah,
What they say, you can't have a testimonial without the test, right?
exactly,
Well,
exactly.
well, cool. So your business started turning around. You were taking some coaching when it started going for the better. What were you doing at that time? Were you teaching, or were you still doing video for people? Like what was the actual business model when you started increasing your revenue?
Yeah, it was a blend. I have local clients that I would do video work with, and things like that, where I helped film modules for courses and little social media videos and things like that for people here locally. But then where I started to get the growth was I would hop on and do these 90-minute, 2-hour long sessions with people to identify the types of stories and videos they needed to tell for their business, and then give them a proposal on if you wanted to work with me on making these into awesome videos for your website, this is what it would cost, right? So I'd have a paid 2-hour session where people would pay me $2,000 to hop on and go and identify all of these stories. And then I'd put a proposal saying, here's this story, this is the story, here's how the messages that we need to craft, and here's what it would cost if you wanted me to come out to you, and we spend a few days or a week or however long it is to film it, and then you have these as assets to use in your business, right? So I started doing that, and that's where I got my first international client, and clients around the country, being able to do that while still working locally with some video production thing. And the thing that's great about my time in film is now I have a network of amazing technicians who know how to do all the stuff. I know
Mhm.
that I do as well, but I can facilitate getting the message identified, and then they can execute, turning it into pretty pictures and stuff. And so as I started doing that, I when I made that shift from getting out of film to focusing again on businesses, I realized a couple of things. Again, I didn't have a network of people or business owners or a community that I could plug myself right into and start getting business. I had to create a name for myself. I had to get my message out there and attract people to me. And so I started doing Facebook Lives every day. And I've done over 1,000 now, since 2018. But like just going and sharing stories, seeing things that I would notice in the world that compared to entrepreneurship, or then I'd share some tips on video stuff or some storytelling tips and things like that. And as I started to do that, I started to attract the right people who then would reach out to me and be like, hey, I would love to talk to you about my story or about some things for my business. How can we go about doing this? Right. And so that's how what I started to do in order to start generating the right kind of traffic, the right kind of leads, and qualified people coming into my world. But of course, it evolved. Everything winds around, and so I started out doing that. But then I started to realize that by doing that, if I could get 2 or 3 2-hour sessions a day, that's great. But I can only do that many before
Hmm.
my brain just turns to complete mush and oatmeal, and I'm used.
Right.
And so I found that there was a sort of a cap to what I could do, and there were only so many people I could fit into a day, right? So I started to think about how can I take some of this knowledge and expertise and package it in something that's consumable and gets results and helps people get clarity right now. Some people can't afford $2,000 to hop on a session, or that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And so I wanted to be able to give people results now without having to take all of my time every day doing it. And so that's where the course, the masterclass type of stuff started to become an attractive draw for me to be able to give and serve people at a high level, but also save me time on the back end, right?
Awesome. Really cool. Yeah, that scalability, is what you're looking for, and having the course facilitates that. And you can still do the coaching and the consulting on the side too.
Exactly. And that's what I found is that the the front end, so to speak, with the masterclass course focus is a great way for me to be able to help people that maybe couldn't afford to work with me individually, or have me do things for them, because that when you're paying for individual expertise, that the cost goes up and stuff like that. So it's a way to be able to nurture my audience up to the level where they can afford to work with me, but
Mhm.
then also I can scale that and it can become its own thing down there, and then I can not have to spend any time, or not as much time building and creating content and all
Mhm.
those kinds of things. It's already in place and done and finished. And now as I can focus on working individually with entrepreneurs and businesses at the higher levels, while other people are having fun and getting results with me as well without it taking my time. It's just so fun to be able to have that freedom come up. But it's all about getting the right people to it, and getting them to jump on it, rather than
Mhm.
spending all your time on sales calls trying to convince or get somebody to see the value in jumping in on it, right?
Right. And then, thinking about Russell Brunson and reading through his books, he talks about the different stages of the value ladder, and you might be pulling in different people at different stages. And so it's nice to
Yeah.
have those front end, middle end, and back end parts of your funnel set up like that. So you started out, it sounded like you were doing some film and video. You said, for the news, and then you got into films and documentaries, and then you were doing some consulting. Your business is growing. At,
Mhm.
when I know, because I come from an audio video production background myself, when you think about video, you think about the camera and the rule of thirds and the pictures.
Right.
Many times we don't think about the story. It's kind
Yeah.
of maybe even a side thought, unless it's like a documentary that's based around the story. Most of the times, marketers, online course creators, entrepreneurs, I don't feel like we focus enough about the story. So at what point was it for you that you realized that the storytelling was the important part of the formula?
Oh man. Well, so I've always loved connecting with people. One of the things that made me successful as a financial advisor is I actually listened to them. I heard their stories. There's no way that I could get somebody to tell me that they had $1 million of assets or cash in an old investment fund or an old 401k, or things like that, unless there was trust. And I found that storytelling was a way to build that trust and that connection really quickly. So I saw that, in my other career paths, how storytelling was, I maybe didn't recognize it specifically as storytelling. I just was able to connect with people. And I've seen that sharing stories, is how you connect. Like, I'm married. We'll be celebrating 18 years of marriage at the end of this month, and stuff like that. And that relationship, the dating, and if you've ever had any sort of relationship that way, you are sharing your stories and you're finding the common ground within it, and then it builds and propels you forward. Or you make the decision like, oh, this isn't going to work, and you move on, right? So I saw that very early in my life, how stories were a connector. But it wasn't until I got into the whole the Russell Brunson world, so to speak, where I saw, I went to, Russell Brunson has this event every year called Funnel Hacking Live. And the first one I ever went to was in 2018 in Orlando. And I remember sitting there in my chair as he gave this proposal, or this presentation called The 12-Month Millionaire is what it was. And I watched him for an hour and a half, just telling story after story after story about things that he had experienced himself, things that he had seen people that he consulted with or clients had done, and then things that he had just witnessed other people in the world do that helped them make money. And I was just like, this is so cool. And he wasn't saying, here's this sales tactic and here's this strategy. It wasn't that at all. It was just story after story layered on another one, and it just built. And at the end of that presentation, he proposed a coaching program that at the time it was $18,000 for the full year, or it was $1,800 a month. And at the end of that, I was so excited because I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I need. But the price was just like such a shock. But I turned around, and to my amazement, there were hundreds of people like at the back of the room buying and paying him $18,000. And that's when, for me, the light really clicked on with what I needed to focus on with my business. Is if I can focus on telling stories that help people understand the results that they can get and help motivate them and get emotional responses, engage the thought process, and then get them to take action. Then if I could do that, then I will have success in my business, right? Because I just witnessed it firsthand. And like, I found myself at the back of the room paying him $18,000
Right.
to do it as well, right? And so for me, that was like the first experience when I literally saw all of it come together to work, in a business type of setting where I could charge or, quote somebody a $20,000 thing and not feel self-conscious or feel icky about it, because I could build and show them exactly how it's going to work for them, and that was my first real experience with witnessing. It was truly amazing. And since then, I started to be, okay, I'm really good at connecting with people naturally. That's one of my just, natural skill sets or abilities that I've been given. But if I can be more intentional with those things, still being genuine, still being me, still being specific in what I'm doing. But when I can, I always talk about beginning with the end in mind when it comes to our storytelling. What do I want the audience to feel, think, and do? What is that journey I want to bring them on? As I start to craft and share the messages, it's been amazing to see how people like make those decisions themselves and come into my world and become clients or buy into the master classes or whatever it might be. And it's just it's been really fun to see how it really comes together in growing, a business or selling a product.
Yeah, it's, just listening to you talk and thinking about back to actions that I've taken, and even getting into Russell's world. The story is so powerful because the person who is listening can put themselves in that person's shoes who's telling the story. So,
Yeah.
Russell's such a great storyteller. I can tell you his potato gun story and his wrestling stories and all of that, and I'm not a wrestler, but when he tells those stories, I can place myself in that story and relate it to things that are going on in my life.
Exactly.
And so I'm so glad to have you on here, because I feel like this is a big piece that a lot of people miss and that we can work on. Hello, course creators. Are you struggling with marketing and selling your online course? If so, then head over to our free community where successful course creators are ready to help you create, Market and sell your expertise. Go to onlinecourseigniter.com/community now to join. That's onlinecourseigniter.com/community. Let's talk a little bit more about strategies and tactics. This podcast is for online course creators. So this is people who are creating online courses, as you've done yourself, so you know about it. And, people who are trying to market their courses. Maybe they're doing, Facebook, social media, YouTube. Can you give us some strategy or some tips on how we can use a story in this atmosphere to help sell more online courses?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like there are a few things that, like, all of us as entrepreneurs, whether you're a course creator or you have a different type of business, that we run into when it comes to thinking about telling or using stories for our business. One, we just don't think that stories will actually work for us. We may have, like I witnessed, we may have gone to a seminar or an event or something, and somebody pitched something, and we either bought it or we were just floored with how many people that we witnessed run to the back of the room and buy it. And so we might have been like, but that worked for them. It's not going to work for me. Like, we have that kind of false belief, so to speak, that we don't think stories will actually work for us because our business is different than Tony Robbins is, or, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the truth about that is that, stories, like I said, are ways that you build trust and relationships really quickly. It's the way to sell more products and services at even a higher value than you currently are. And then it's the way to multiply wealth. Like, so if you have something that's successful, or you have, the money that you're wanting right now, or those kinds of things, it will multiply how much you get back. And it's really incredible. So that's the one thing, is like, storytelling does work because it builds trust. It helps in the sales process. And then it multiplies the success or the wealth that you already have, or grows it to a level that you hadn't before thought you would. And then the next one is that, we don't think. How many of you have been to a party or a networking event and you've had an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, but it just fell flat, or it's super awkward, right? Like, we don't think that we're good at storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, if you've been through any sort of relationship, if you've been on dates, if you've been in a partnership, if you've ever sold anything to anyone, you have told stories, and you've done them successfully. Whether it resulted in a marriage or a breakup or whatever, like, you have told the stories that you have told have been successful, and you've told thousands, if not millions, of successful stories in your life already. You just haven't had success with it being intentional with your business. Possibly there's a disconnect. We can tell stories all day, every day, to complete strangers at the grocery store or at marketing or networking events or things like that. But when it comes to our messaging for our business, there's a disconnect. A lot of people are like, right. I don't know where to start. I don't know what stories to tell. Like, so many people I meet fall into one of two categories. They're like, I'm really boring and don't have an interesting life. What am I going to talk about? Or they've had so much experience that they don't know what they should share versus where they shouldn't, or, where to start, and all those kinds of things. But I'm telling you that right now in your life, you have told thousands of successful stories in your life. And then the next thing to think of is that you're comparing yourself to the gurus, right? And that's just not fair. Like, I look at Tony Robbins and like guys like Dean Graziosi and even Russell Brunson, they're master storytellers. And we go to their things, or we hear their webinars, or we go to their events, and we're just like, we feel like we could run through a brick wall after hearing their messages. We're like, we can take on the whole world. And then when we think of ourselves, or we try it ourselves, it falls short, or it doesn't get the same results. But these guys they have spent tons of money and time developing and honing these stories. They have focus groups, and they have consultants, and all these different types of people to help them identify or weed through or solidify some of their core stories. And then they have years and years and years of repetition of telling the same stories. Like, if you follow Tony Robbins, for instance, he tells the same stories at every event, basically. But guess what? You're still on the edge of your seat. You're sucked into them. He still gets emotional during them, because he's coming from a genuine place. It
Right.
affects us. It helps us connect with him and all those kinds of things. And that's why people can go and walk on hot coals, at his events of Unleash the Power Within and things like that. And so, a lot of times we just don't have the resources that they've had access to. And so, like, strategically, if it's cool with you, Jeremy, like, I'll go through my just really quickly the 9 steps of the framework
Yeah,
that I use
that'd
for
be great.
storytelling, so that, like, all of you, whether you use these in the modules in the courses that you're creating, or you use it in the stories and the marketing messages that you tell to get people to your course. Like, these 9 steps will help you totally, get the clarity on what needs to go into your story. And then you'll start to see how to structure the story and how to tell it in a way that gets an emotional response like you see these gurus do. Okay.
Okay.
So, step number 1 is beginning with the end in mind. Okay. That's a phrase that was kind of popularized by Stephen R. Covey with his book Seven Habits for Highly Successful Individuals. And it's his second step in his, but it's the first in mine, because as entrepreneurs and course creators, content creators, everything that we need to do, everything that we do needs to be intentional. There has to be a purpose behind it. And so when you begin with the end in mind, it's whenever you tell a story, whether it's a Facebook Live or a podcast episode or even a TikTok, something that's simple, you can think of it. What do I want the audience to feel, think, and do? What is the result I want as at the end of this video or of the end of this story? And when you engage the feel, the emotions, what emotions can you stir? Because one, when people have those emotions active, it helps their decision-making process. The emotions actually are the subconscious's way of letting the conscious mind know its decision. So when you can engage those emotions, good things happen, and it becomes a connection point to you and to your brand as well. And then thought processes. What do you want them to think? You want to be engaging in, hopefully they're asking questions like, or thinking about, man, this is what my life is like right now. What would life be like after partnering with Jeremy or partnering with Nick or, whoever it is, or
Mhm.
your name in that place, right? And that starts them thinking about how they can prosper and grow with your help. And then do what actions you want them to take. If it's buying or opting into your email list or buying your course or, subscribing to your YouTube channel, whatever it is, that action. And I find that when you begin with the end in mind, then you can reverse engineer and identify the stories and experiences that you have or that you have witnessed to lead the audience to that conclusion. So beginning with the end in mind is the first step, because once you have that, then you can start identifying the stories and the experiences that you have in order to, get the audience to that end game.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, how many times do we hop on a Facebook Live because we have a great idea, and then you realize halfway through the live, where am I taking people?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah. There's merit in going live or publishing for the sake of publishing to get good at it. But when you can throw this intention on the beginning of it,
Mhm.
you just will consolidate the time frame. Because I know not a lot of us, don't have the luxury of having a few years to really struggle through and hone our stories, because we've got to pay our bills now, or those
Right.
kinds of things. We don't have that luxury to test something and see what works and that kind of stuff, without making a living at the same time. And so this will help you get the results and that kind of stuff, but also move you along, and just speed up your improvement. So step 2 is steps 2 through 6 are all about how you structure your story. But step 2 is that every story has 3 simple things, and it's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And people chuckle when I bring that up because it's so simple. But every great story does very specific things within those 3 areas. And when you follow that structure and do these things, um, you again invite the audience into your story. They come on the journey, they buy in, and there's a lot of emotional connection that happens as you do this. You look at any movie that you love. Like I love the Star Wars movies, and Back to the Future and all these things. If you look at the structure and the things that happen within those stories that get us, to totally buy in and follow these characters and cheer when they win or cry when they lose, and all these kinds of things, you can have those same results with your stories and what you tell. And I've witnessed this with my own stories and things like that. But it's super powerful. But when you can, invite people into the story in the beginning, and then in the middle you just ramp up the story and the conflict and push it forward, and then at the end you resolve the issues and things like that. When you can structure it that way, amazing things happen between you and the audience. So like step 3 is the key of the beginning part of your story. It's introduce the conflict early, right? When you can introduce the conflict, every single one of us started a business or has a course or something because there was conflict or a problem in our life or that we saw in the world. And we set out to fix it or to help people navigate through it or overcome the challenge themselves. So when you introduce the conflict early, one, it just shows that you are not some god or goddess on a hilltop that has a perfect life, that you have gone through your own struggles, which again connects the audience to you because they're in the middle of their struggles, right? Or else they wouldn't be looking into your product or service. But then it also just gets that emotional buy-in really quickly. It draws that line in the sand, so to speak, and they choose to come along with you or go away. And with marketing and branding, we want to attract the people who we want to work with and repel the people that we don't. And so this is just the first step in kind of drawing that line and getting people to side with us or go away.
I like that one. That one, seems real important for course creators because we're solving a problem, and that problem is something that we've experienced. So we've had that problem, learn how to get through it, and now we're helping others with that problem. And so I like this one a lot because it's talking to those people who are currently struggling with what you're trying to teach them, basically.
Exactly. And again, it just makes you relatable. You think of all these stories with the heroes in it, Luke Skywalker, right? In Star Wars, he's the hero of Star Wars, but Obi-Wan Kenobi is the wise man who's kind of gone through the things that Luke is about to. So he's there to guide, right? And so it's the same kind of thing where you have that expertise, you have that experience that somebody else doesn't yet have, and you're there to guide them and help them navigate it. And it's just super powerful to have that. So step number 4 is also, part of the beginning of the story is introducing the key characters. You're not the only person in your story. You have, there might be family members or a spouse or partners or coworkers or former bosses or global pandemics or whatever it might be. There are other characters to your story. You didn't go on your journey alone. And by introducing the key characters, it helps the audience understand that they're not alone in their journey. They're surrounded by amazing people as well. But then it also gives other perspectives for the audience to connect to, because not everyone is like me or can resonate 100% with me. So as I share my wife's perspective and, these other types of things and how my journey affected these people, then they see themselves in these other characters as well. So it's more connection points to you. And it's very powerful, right?
Very
and then coming on to step number 5 is naming an enemy. We talked about how all of our stories have conflict. There is a person or an entity or something that brought that conflict to us. It could be a person or a corporation or, a health issue or a global pandemic, whatever it might be. And as you name the enemy, Star Wars, there's the rebellion and the bad guys are the empire, like that. We know who the enemy is. And as we learn more about them and their motives and how they affected us or made, our journey's challenge, then the audience is going to resonate more. It's like human nature to root for the underdog. So when they know that you're up against something, again, that gives them something to root for on your side, and gets them emotionally bought in so that they're invested in your success as well. And when they see your success, they celebrate it because now they know that it's possible and they want to experience that themselves. And so naming an enemy is super powerful. And of course, if the enemy of your story is your ex-spouse or somebody that if you name them specifically by name could cause some unnecessary drama or things like that, you don't have to name them specifically by name that way. Like earlier, I mentioned my former partners. I didn't mention their names specifically or what
Right.
firm they work for. I just mentioned my former partners, right? So you just be wise in how you do it, but when you can name specifically, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah,
Um,
and it makes me think about what you said about marketing, drawing those people closer to you that are in your shoes or want to be like you. Because when you name that enemy, it seems like you're drawing that line in the sand, and the people who have experienced that before, like, I can relate to his ex girlfriend because I had a girlfriend just like that. Like it
yeah.
feels like it would draw them closer to you in that sense.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. Like we attract the people that we want to work with and repel the people that we don't. If
Nice.
if there are people that think we're total idiots or whatever, and you don't want to spend any time with them because as clients, they are not fun to work with and they end up being a lot more work than they're worth and things like that. So it's just another great draw that line in the sand and they buy in. So, step number 6 is raising the stakes. This is where we transition to the middle of the story. The middle of the story is all about conflict and making it more complex. So, for me, I mentioned in my story, like I was fired. So there's the initial conflict that started me on my journey. And then I started as a freelance photojournalist, and then I worked on films and TV commercials and TV shows and all these cool things. And then now I work with entrepreneurs and businesses to help them structure their stories. Like while all of those parts of my stories are true, like there was conflict or there were things that caused me to take the next step in each one of those. And we don't have time to go deep into it, but your journey and where you're at and where you've been, you might have said, okay, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to be able to live out of a backpack. Like Jeremy and I were talking before we rolled, how, he's got his office in a backpack, right? Like there are things that happened that got him to make these shifts. There was the
Mhm.
conflict just changed. It doesn't always have to stay the same. It just evolves and changes and gets more complex and brings new problems. We find a solution, but now we recognize, oh crap, now I've got to handle this. And
Mhm.
so when we raise the stakes, again, like you think of movies, where it gets to the point where Marty McFly, if he doesn't hit the wire right when the lightning hits the clock tower, then he's stuck forever in 1955 and doesn't get to go home and his family disappears and all these things, right? The
Right.
conflict didn't start out as that. It started with him like inadvertently driving and traveling back in time in the DeLorean, right? Spoiler alert if you've never seen Back to the Future. It's one of those things. So throughout that movie and stories, you see that the conflict gets more complex. You raise the stakes where it becomes imperative that you succeed in order to, if or else, you have that do or die type of moment. Then, so step number 7 after that is being detailed. When you can share the details, sights, smells, emotions, people, who you're with, all those kinds of things, that draws the audience in. All these little details that you can share in your story, are so powerful. If you remember being, you think of September 11th, 2001, those that were alive to experience that, everyone knows and remembers exactly where they were, what they were doing, all those kinds of things when all those events happened. And when you share those moments with other people, you bring them in and they can understand
Mhm.
how it felt and how it impacted you. And it's the same with your stories. Don't gloss over things. Like really dig into it because one, it just details create new memories or help the audience tap into their memories and experiences that might similarly mirror what yours are. But also when you're telling stories, like the parts of the brain outside of just like the audio and the language processing parts, the other areas of their brain are working as if they were actually experiencing that moment themselves. So the more detailed you can be, the more they're going to connect and
Yeah.
experience it. And it's super powerful.
I love this one, and this was a light bulb moment for me one day. I was listening to Stephen Larson talk, and he was doing a video, and he was explaining the same thing, and he was talking about, he used an analogy of, I came home from work, and I opened the door, and I smelt the greatest dinner smell I've ever had, and I saw my wife standing. And he went on and described the story, and then took back and said, what were you thinking? What door did you see? What smell did you smell? And it was really powerful because, like you said, it draws the listener in, and the
Mhm.
listener starts putting themselves in the story. And when you do that, you're creating that connection, right?
Exactly. And when you can get to that point when they feel like they are there with you in those moments, they will be with you for the long haul. This is
Right.
the part that will build those connections, those emotional connections between your audience and your brand or yourself or whatever it is that you're building. Um, and get them to like be loyal, loving followers that stick with you through thin and thin, that come back again and again, that continue to pay you or buy your products and services. And there's a reason why Disney is so so successful, and there's a reason why they raise the prices of their tickets to Disneyland every year. And some people groan about it, but guess what? Still, people show up every year and pay $7 for a churro or $14 for a turkey leg, or all this kind of stuff, because they are drawn in. And everything within Disneyland, for example, all of the littlest details are intentional, and it just creates just loyalty beyond measure. Okay.
They even put fake smells throughout the park. Like,
Exactly.
I've heard that they'll actually, like, put a popcorn smell, throughout the park, or you'll go on a ride and they'll use smells inside the ride to make you drawn in. I love that.
Yeah, and while with our branding messages we don't do that per se, but again, when we're descriptive, it's so powerful for the audience. Like, I've had complete strangers come to my webinar to come into my masterclass kind of thing. People who had no idea who I were, that at the end they feel connected with me, and they like join, and they send me a message like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it! I'm so excited! I'm in!" I had no idea that this was even out there. Like, the details create that kind of a reaction. That's amazing. And then step 8 is be genuine. Okay, when uh, it's kind of twofold. Like, being genuine is one. Some people are like, I can't cry on camera, and that kind of thing is. You don't have to be emotional. You don't have to have a Barbara Walters special where you cry or things like that. But don't force yourself to become emotional either, because unless you're Tom Hanks or something like that, you can't fake that and have it be really believable. So don't feel like you have to force things or get yourself to become emotional in order to get your point across. But then the other side of that coin is, don't fake or embellish or make up aspects of your story that are not true, because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when it comes out that it's not true or that it didn't happen. Somebody somehow is, as you grow, the truth will come out if you made up a part of your story. I think of Jay Shetty, was about a year or so, a year ago. It kind of came out that some of his content wasn't his own, but he was he wasn't 100% claiming it was his own original content, but he didn't, accredit some of it to the actual creators of it. And it bit him in the butt, and he lost some trust and things like that. And when you lose trust because you were caught lying to your audience, it is almost impossible to regain.
Right.
So you have to be genuine that way as well with what you share. But then also thinking about, if you wanted to add this another side to it, is just think about the people that you're wanting to serve, who you can help right now, who are struggling through the same things that you struggled through, who are losing sleep or having stress or having arguments with their spouse or loved ones and things like that. They're in pain now and they need your help. And as you think of them and how you can help them, your message, when it's geared towards that audience and wanting to help them, it comes across so clear and it resonates with them, because they know you're not, How many times have you listened to a pitch, or you've got a new friend on Facebook, and then 2 minutes later you get, oh, hey, how's it going? That kind of thing. And it automatically goes into a pitch without them knowing you, right? That's not
Right.
good. And we can see through that, and it rubs us the wrong way. Whereas if it's something where you are coming from a place of truly caring and you want to help and serve, and you share your message through that lens, it connects and people really resonate with it. And so,
Nice.
and then the last step, I know we've gone a little long, so I apologize for
Mhm.
that, everybody. But the last
All
step,
good.
if you don't do this one, all of the other 8 steps before are absolutely useless. And you might as well just like have deleted and not listened to any of it. But it's do
Don't
it
do that.
now and don't wait, right? You have to take action. You have to start doing it now. Because waiting until I have, well, I'll wait until I have 10,000 followers, or,
Mm,
whatever it is, like that, the longer you put those kinds of benchmarks on it, you're not going to reach it. You're going to keep pushing it off and pushing it off. And then the flip side of it, again, talking about what we were saying with the genuine part, is that there are people who need you now. They're searching
right.
for you right now. They might not know they're searching for you specifically by name, but by publishing and doing it now and not waiting and putting it out there, they're going to hear your voice. They're going to recognize it, and it's going to change their life forever. And the longer that you keep, telling yourself the lie or being selfish about, people aren't going to care or whatever, those things are, the longer you're keeping them in pain. And if you're anything like me, I love the people that I serve. The thought of keeping them in pain because I'm being selfish and keeping things to myself is almost unbearable for me. And it's just a good way to be able to just get out of our own way, to stumble through it. But now you have this framework, so you're better qualified than most people that come out of challenges and things ready to take on the world, but have no tools in their toolbox in order to get the message out. You've got this framework now,
Right.
but when you start doing it now, like, you will have the most amazing experiences. Like, I go to events, I go to things. Well, back when we used to be able to have them, who knows when, right? But like, I go to these events and I have complete strangers that I did not know existed before this moment come up to me and say, "Hey, I watch all of your Facebook lives, or I totally loved what you did on this, or thank you for sharing your story on this podcast, or on this, summit, or whatever it might be." And it was powerful for them, and it helped them to take action, or to get clarity, or whatever it might be. But if I would have, shied away from it, if Jeremy, when he reached out to me to say, "Hey, would you like to hop on and do a little interview?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't have the audience the size that I want, so no, I'll wait." Right? Like, if we put it off, those people would not get get the motivation, the inspiration, the information, or the, uh, tactical things, and able to move themselves forward in one way or another. And so that's why you have to be doing it now. Don't wait another day. Like, as soon as you get done with this, write down these 9 steps, and start doing the one, and do a Facebook Live or something right after, just to get in that habit and start building that habit. And I promise you that it won't be long before you start seeing new people coming into your world. You'll be getting messages saying thank you for this or that, and it will be powerful for you and powerful for the people that it goes out to.
Yeah, and how awesome was it the other night, when I learned about you and you told me you had your master class. I found out you had a master class, and I looked at it and I sent you a message, and you sent me a video, and it was like a short, like 4-minute video. Like, how long does it take to shoot a 4-minute video? And you said in the video, I mean, this was 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I don't know what time it was for you, but for me, it was like 6 or 7 at night. And you were like, yeah, I'm about to have dinner with the family, and I was about to be done for the day, but I wanted to shoot this video out. And you just said, you told me who you were, what you had, and all this stuff. And that was very impactful for me, because no one ever takes the time to send a personalized video, right? I mean, if it's Facebook Messenger, people will message you. Every now and then you'll get the person use the audio feature, but no one ever does a video. Now, it would have been just as easy for you to be like, it's 6 o'clock at night. I'm about to have dinner. I'll talk to him later. But you
Right.
took the time, you made the video, you sent it to me, and it really it built that relationship. I think I even texted you. I was like, man, I just had a master class in relationship building because I was so floored. Then I'm like, why would I not invest into someone like this who has taken the time to care? And had you not done it, we might not be having this podcast. So that's
True.
really awesome.
Yeah.
So I had a couple follow-up questions, but let's just make sure that we have all the points here. So number one, start with the end in mind. Number two, make sure you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Number
Mhm.
three, introduce conflict. Number
Yep.
four, introduce key characters. Number five,
Yep.
name an enemy. Number
Mhm.
six, raise the stakes. Number
Yep.
seven, be detailed. Number eight, be genuine. And number nine, don't wait, get started now.
Yep.
Does that
That's it.
sum it up in case anyone wasn't writing it down? Hope you wrote it down that time.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, cool. So yeah, that sounds like a good strategy. Now, one question that I had is, do you set this framework for every story that you're going to tell? So if I need to do, let's not even say a Facebook Live once a day. Let's just say that I can only do a couple a week or once a week. Do you recommend
Yeah.
going through this framework every time that you sit down to map out what you're going to talk about?
I absolutely do. Every time I sit down before I'm going to do a live or things like that, I always do the whole begin with the end in mind, feel, think, and do, like every single time. Now, you might, depending on what it is you're messaging or trying to sell, or what action you're wanting them to take, you might not have a huge like emotional type of story, but I'm telling you, like, this framework of structuring conflict, characters, enemies, raising the stakes, those kinds of things, everything within the story. If you want to do more than just regurgitate or spit out data or information, if you want your audience to connect, if you want them to understand you and build a relationship, this framework is magic at doing that. I've had people that have come into the masterclass, and within the first module, they go and they just put the feel, think, and do, begin with the end in mind part to work, and they get immediate results, right? And so when you do this, it's all designed to build that emotional connection. This is where brands are built, is with the emotional aspect of storytelling. You look at Amazon, or if you're an e-com seller, you look at products and things that you buy and you price compare and all those kinds of things. Like, you can give that information, but when you wrap it in a story, Nike with Just Do It, or it's got to be the shoes back when Michael Jordan was the face of the company, and all these kinds of things. Those connections, those emotional connections that are built with the brand, are the reasons why Nike is still a household name. It's why Coca-Cola beats Pepsi in sales, even though Pepsi beats Cola or Coca-Cola in taste tests.
Mhm.
The connection to the brand is the difference maker. If your course or your masterclass or whatever it is, your product is a little bit more expensive than one of your competitors, the story that you share it in and that you wrap it in will be that difference maker that gets them to choose you over the competition. The story and the frame following this framework will help level the playing field between you and your favorite gurus, right? You see what they do these same things. Like, watch any presentation from
Mhm.
whoever your marketing heroes are, or whatever gurus or entrepreneurs that you follow. You watch their presentations and the things that they do, and you will see this framework at work. So I do it with every message that I put out. I even think about it, and I don't spend tons of time on it because I've been doing this my whole life.
Mhm.
But even when I'm doing a 15, 30, or 60-second like TikTok or an Instagram story, I think about these things first, and it helps me just be more clear on you know, who I serve, what I do to serve them, how I want to sell it or get it into their lives. And so, if you want to be able to know the who, the what, the how, and have a great understanding, this framework will help you get that.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny listening to you talk, and I'm thinking back to my earlier years in life. And we were talking about Disney, and I actually have degree in computer animation. I wanted to be a computer animator because I just loved video games and movies growing up too. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize when I went into computer animation that the majority of the film is spent on the storyboarding. And if anyone out there's listening and doesn't know what a storyboard is, it's the sketch drawings that animators create and stick on a wall and look at before they even begin creating the film. And
Yeah.
they'll spend days, weeks, and months perfecting that storyboard, perfecting the sketches and the flow and how it's going to look and feel. So when they go to animate it, it's already pretty much done, right? They just got to put the icing on the cake. It seems like the same thing. So many times we go out there and we just start publishing content with no end in mind. We don't know the beginning, middle, and end. We haven't done some of these steps. And like you're saying, if you just take the time to be a little more focused and intentional, it just seems like it's going to take you much further.
Absolutely. It definitely is. And even if you've had success with your stories, like this framework will just, again, like compress the time. You run your stories through this little checklist really easily. If you can check off all 9 of these, or all of these steps, then you're in good shape, and you just go forward and you just improve and get better at it, by being intentional through the framework and stuff. But you're totally right. Like Hollywood has made nearly $1 trillion since 1970 just in ticket sales, through the box office. And even the bad flop movies still made a little money at the box office, but like they follow these steps. And
Hmm.
when we do it for our business, like how many, like I think there's a revolution is almost having or happening, or a renaissance happening with how businesses are marketing themselves. And emotional storytelling is one that is starting to gain some traction. Like the big names have been
Hmm.
doing it, and there's a reason why they're multimillionaires and billionaires. But now, for those of you who are on the starting end or trying to build up to being a 7 or 8 figure business and those kinds of things, this is the way to go
Yeah.
about selling more of your stuff to the right
Yeah.
people.
We're definitely seeing a surgence of more personalities and brands now.
Yeah,
You've got Burger King on Twitter, like making funny jokes, and it seems like that the marketing is going more toward that personal feel, that personal relationship.
yeah.
I had a question for you. This is kind of more of a personal for me question because I've always wondered this. Do you keep like a journal, or do you keep your stories organized somewhere? Because I've thought about this myself. I reached out to you because of I was wondering about my own stories and how can I speak better, be a better presenter, tell better stories. And I
Right.
started writing down stories in what I could relate that to. So if I wanted to talk about email marketing, maybe I got a story that relates to that somehow. Do you do that? Do you organize your stories, or keep some kind of journal of them so you can refer to them later on?
Yeah, so I have a Google Doc that I, copy and paste. If I do a really good like Facebook post that gets a lot of engagement, that's just like, copywriting basically. I'll copy and paste those and put those in. But like I like to use Facebook Live as a testing place for a lot of my stories, because you get immediate feedback, right? You can see the analytics, you can see the comments and the likes and all these kinds of things. So I'll go and do those from I have like my, Nic Fitzgerald entrepreneur page type of thing. So I can, if I publish it there, I have a lot of data and analytics. So like I kind of do a little bit of both, where I copy and paste and I keep, sales copy or email sequences and messages and things that I put out there. And then I have the Facebook Lives where I can go back and look, listen how I told a story, make some adjustments and those kinds of things. But writing out, like even just when you think of your entrepreneurial journey, and just kind of bullet point it to start out, of just saying, okay, here's the story of when, right before I got started. Here's the thing that got me started. Here's the thing that I learned when I did this, like, and just bullet point it. That way you can kind of see, oh my gosh, I've got a lot of stories that I could work on. or I have told. It's a good thing to be able to keep track. And like everyone's different. Like I'm a if I can write it in a notebook, I internalize it a lot better. So
Right.
I'll bullet point certain stories that I want to tell or work on. I'll write those out and then I'll go flesh them out, digitally from there and then refer back to them. But it's definitely a great idea to journal or catalog or whatever system works for you. If it's a spreadsheet with links to the Facebook lives or the stories that you told, if you did it live, or podcast interviews and that kind of stuff. It's a good way to be able to refer back, see which ones you're telling often, because when you kind of identify those core stories for your business and you put more focus into those, then everything benefits and grows as a result too.
Nice. Now, what do you say about the fear of telling the same story over and over again? Like, how often should we be telling a story, or how often is too much? Or, I think a personal fear and probably a fear of a lot of people is like, well, I just did a Facebook Live last week on this story. When should I say it again, or should I not say it again? Or how often is too often?
Right. Well, a lot of it depends on the audience, right? Like, so the stories that I've shared about starting my journey and stuff, I've shared those hundreds, if not thousands of times on podcast interviews and virtual summits and all that kind of stuff. You're going to tell your story over and over and over, and you'll start to get sick of it a little bit. You'll get to a point where you're like, oh, here I go again. How can I change this up so it's more interesting to me? But the thing to remember, like even if you're doing it to your own audience, it's always good. Every single one of my Facebook lives, I give an intro and then I tell just a little bit about myself, because I'm like, I'm Nic Fitzgerald and la la la. I go through this kind of pre-scripted mini story for anyone who just might be there for the first time.
Hmm.
So you're gonna get sick of your stories before anyone else does. But the thing that you can like, the benefit that comes from being repetitious in the stories that you tell is they become automatic, and you can also try little tweaks and little changes in order to see what resonates with an audience, and then you get them really dialed in, and it's super powerful. So I would say, if you just went live yesterday and shared like your origin story of like why you started your business, yeah, going on today and doing the same thing is probably not a good idea. So now you try and think, okay, again, feel, think, and do. Yesterday, I wanted to introduce myself and why I got into business to my audience. Okay, so I did that. Now, what new questions might there be? What new things might they be experiencing? Or maybe I can talk about how I have this course that I created. Let me tell the story of how I created this course, because there might be some similarities or some of the same stories within both of those, but it's just a different angle, right? And when you can explore your stories from different angles, the same stories from different angles, you can find better ways to tell it. So I wouldn't shy away from, being worried about, oh, they heard that story again. I have, thousands of people who have heard me tell, parts of my story that I shared today, and that kind of stuff. And it will open up the door for them wanting to hear more, so you can go deeper into things when you might not have the time constraints or restraints upon you.
Mhm.
Or you can focus on certain aspects. You're like, I told the story of how I started my business, and in that story I talked about this. I want to talk about and explain more about this aspect of it, right? And so it's just a good way for you to really flesh out, because if you have an hour, 90 minutes, 3 hours, or you've got 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 seconds, you can get good at telling the same story in
Mhm.
different ways, then you can maximize it and repurpose it in lots of different places.
Oh, that's awesome. One of my favorite motivational speakers, Zig Ziglar,
Mhm.
said that one time. He says, I tell the same story, and I can tell you the same story in 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours. He says it's the same story, but you can, depending on the time, you can elaborate on it more and more. And it's cool
Yeah,
because, people who know you and like you and heard your story, they typically don't care if they hear it again, or maybe
yeah,
there's some changes that they didn't hear the first time, so that's cool.
exactly. Well, and you mentioned having heard Russell Brunson's stories a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
How, like, think for you in the audience listening, like, think of whoever it is that you follow, whatever entrepreneurs or business mentors or things like that. How well do you know their story?
Yeah.
You didn't hear it just once. You've heard it over and over and over
Right.
a bunch of times, and you still love it. You relish it. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, here we go again, right? When you hear them going into it, it's the same for you. Now you just have to think, how many people do you that are in your world know your story or
Right.
know your background? That should be the motivation a little bit,
Yeah.
for you telling your story is like you want to become well known to them, where they know
Right.
your story and they're telling their friends about it and they're going on other people's podcasts or stories and telling your stories a little bit, right? When you can get to that point, or when you get to that point is when you know that you are building a brand and something that
Mhm.
will stand the test of time, as opposed to I just found a really good product and I'm selling it and it's doing really good right now. It's what will take you to the next level.
Oh man, that's perfect. That's really awesome. So, Nick, just in the next couple years, I know your business is taking off and doing really well. You've got your consulting, the film stuff. You've got your masterclass that you're doing. Where do you see yourself in the next couple years? Like, have you found out what you want to be when you grow up yet?
Well, it's funny that always is shifting and changing, but it's becoming a lot way more dialed in. And my superpower is in helping people identify and find those core stories that they should be telling. Like for e-commerce, right? You have the reason you started your business, you have a story for each product that you sell and serve or put out there and things like that. So I I intend to be, the go-to when it comes to identifying and crafting the stories, the core stories for your business and getting those so dialed in so that they can go out and serve the world immediately and get you results immediately. So whether that's through the done with you one-on-one type of stuff, or some people just don't have the time to donate it or delegate to it, so there's the done for you versions of it as well. So I just see like crafting the powerful stories, because once you have the stories identified, then you can do podcasts, then you can use it as a podcast or in a video or a Facebook live or whatever. But if you don't have the message dialed in or even identified, how can you feel good about investing thousands of dollars to hire a videographer or a production company to come in and create a video for you, that might only work for you for a few months or maybe a year? If you once you get dialed in and really identify those core stories, they'll work for you for years and years and years, all day, every day, never call in sick, on whatever platform that you decide to publish on. So that's where I see where I'm going.
Awesome. That's perfect, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on the podcast today and just giving us all this juicy information and talking to us about stories. I feel like a lot of people out there can take this information and start using it in their own business. I know I will. And if people want to work with you or they want to take your master class or find out more about what you have going on, where would the best place for them to go be?
It's for if you want to get a free download of like this framework that we talked about, I have that available on friendlygiantfilms.com. You can download it immediately and start. It goes in a little bit deeper than what we had time for today, but you'll be able to refer back to it always. But like if you want to go deeper into that framework, I have a storytelling framework masterclass. And so at storytellingframeworks.com is where you can go and look at that. And it's designed, it's not one of those courses that's designed to overwhelm you. You course creators know, some people tell you to build your course to overwhelm the audience so that they need more from you. This one is designed to give you all of the tools when it comes to knowing what needs to go into your story, how to structure it, and how to go about telling it to get emotional responses. So those are the two places that you could go get started. And of course, I'm on social media, Nic Fitzgerald. You can follow along and all that good stuff too. But that would be where I would send you if you wanted to get started with intentionally telling stories for your business.
And if you follow Nick on social media, you may or may not see him playing guitar.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was awesome. Well, cool, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time today, and
Yeah.
I just look forward to your continued success in the future.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's great to be here and I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us today, Nic. You can find out more about him and his business by visiting friendlygiantfilms.com, or you can get the show notes of this episode along with links and resources by visiting onlinecourseigniter.com/16. See you next week for an all-new episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Online Course Igniter podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening so that you don't miss an episode. If you would like to learn more marketing strategies and how to sell your online course, then also check out our free community where we share tips, tricks, and tutorials at onlinecourseigniter.com/community.